Hi everyone, this is the Training for Finding Your Voice, missions, outcomes, and theoretical basis. So here we're going to really talk about why do we do camp and what are the reasons behind the things we do. So the mission of Finding Your Voice is to provide a safe place for adolescent girls and provide them with the opportunity to foster self-esteem, self-expression, and self-efficacy by engaging in outdoor recreational activities and educational health seminars. So these are those non-traditional outdoor recreation activities that we're providing, like kayaking, backpacking, rock climbing, and then also educational health seminars. That's our yoga, our self-defense, our body positivity activities, things like that. So the target outcomes are increased self-esteem, increased physical activity, self-efficacy, and increased self-empowerment. And we're going to talk about each of those as we go on. So over 17% of children and adolescents are overweight in the US, and this number has been growing over the years. We're seeing more people becoming more obese, and minorities and people from low-income populations are being disproportionately affected by this increase in weight gain and obesity. Physical activity is a key determinant in an individual's risk for being overweight or being obese. The more we move, the less we tend to weigh, especially as children. And over 33% of children and adolescents are not participating in what the CDC calls vigorous physical activity, and only 28% of adolescents are getting the recommended amount of physical activity on a daily basis. So the CDC says you should be getting 60 minutes of physical activity every day, and over 70% of teenagers are not reaching that level. And when you think of how much time they spend in school, how much time they spend doing homework, how much time they need to sleep, it's not terribly surprising. So what? Why does it matter if people are being physically active or not? Well, almost 10% of medical expenditures in the US are related to obesity and weight gain, and that's over $92 billion every year is being spent because people are not at a healthy weight. And individuals who are overweight as children are more likely to be overweight as adults. There's some physiological reasons for that, but there's also a lot of health habits and health awareness that plays into that. And children and adolescents who are overweight or obese are 10 times more likely to develop hypertension. They're at an increased risk for type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, and other causes of premature death. These overweight children are also likely to be stigmatized by their peers, and that can cause depression and anxiety. Think of the world that these kids are living in right now. They spend so much time on the internet. They spend so much time seeing these perfect Instagram models or Facebook models or whatever they're on, seeing these ideal bodies, and if they don't live up to that, not only are they judging themselves, but they're also being judged by their peers. Females are especially at risk to stop participating in physical activity when they reach the teenage years. So from childhood to middle adolescence, we're seeing rates of physical activity participation dropping dramatically with females. So you can see on this chart that everybody, as they go from the age of 9 to the age of 15, is lowering their minutes of activity per day. But it's somewhere around 12, 13, really closer to 13, that we're seeing girls really drop off. And so why are girls less active? Well, there is a drop in self-esteem that can happen. There is lack of opportunities for females. High school males have 40% more opportunities to participate in varsity athletics than females. That is wild, considering that's the very reason that Title IX was created, was so that girls would have these opportunities to participate. And this can be because of a perceived lack of skill or perceived lack of self-efficacy. Girls also tend to lack role models. They tend to have body image issues. They don't want to be active in front of the boys. And in those early teen years, they start losing their confidence as their body starts changing. And some of them don't really know how to handle these physical changes that come along with puberty. So what are non-traditional activities? Non-traditional activities are typically anything that you wouldn't normally get in school. So these are things like kayaking, rock climbing, hiking, water skiing. They're typically outdoor activities that aren't our usual, basketball, baseball type organized sports. And female participation rates in outdoor activities are also very low. So they're not participating in sports at school, and they're also not participating in outdoor activities in non-school times. And there's a lot of reasons for this. One is gender roles. So outdoor versus indoor play, who's encouraged to do what? Typically, we've seen that boys are encouraged to be outdoors, to play rough, to be exploring and getting dirty, and girls are encouraged to stay inside and play with their baby dolls. There's also this ethic of care where girls are expected to take on a nurturing and caring role earlier than boys are, or more than boys ever are. And so getting outdoors and doing these adventurous activities doesn't really conform with that ethic of nurturing and care. And also they want to conform within participation. So what is everybody else doing? If everybody else is sitting on the sidelines and playing with makeup, then they're more likely to do that than they are to jump in the game. There's also fear, one, embarrassment. So they're afraid of being embarrassed by either a lack of skill or a lack of knowledge. There's also this fear for their safety. How many times as a girl have you heard, don't go out alone at night, go everywhere with a buddy, be careful if you put down your drink at a party. There's so many ways in which girls are conditioned to be fearful for their safety that limit their participation in sports, particularly non-traditional outdoor sports. And then socialization too. What are you brought up to believe is a normal pursuit? And who are your role models? What are your role models doing? And then there's also a lack of exposure. So there's this huge focus on father-son activities. We're going to go out hunting, we're going to go out fishing, we're going to go hiking, we're going to get in the canoe. And we don't see that as much with fathers and daughters, and we don't see mothers and daughters typically participating in those sort of activities. A mommy and me date is usually, oh, let's go get our nails done. There's also a lack of exposure in our organization. So looking at the Boy Scouts versus the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts have a huge focus on the out of doors, on recreational activities, and Girl Scouts, there's a lot more flexibility. You can be in a Girl Scout troop that does 110% everything that you would do in a Boy Scout troop, or depending on who your troop leaders are, you can be in a Girl Scout troop that does nothing other than color and sing and bake cookies, which might be what some girls want to do, but what are we teaching girls if we're limiting them to that sphere? And then also a lack of participation. So if girls don't see people like them participating, they don't want to participate. If they haven't been encouraged to participate, they might not have the skills or the self-efficacy to put themselves out there and participate. So what? Why does it matter if we get girls outside? We've seen why they're not going outside. Why should we work so hard at getting them outside? Well, there's a few reasons. Participation in outdoor recreation leads females to heightened self-esteem, self-sufficiency, independence, self-trust, confidence, and a sense of authority, not only for themselves, but for all females. This means that when we get girls outside participating in these recreational activities, we help build them up. We give them a sense of confidence in themselves, in their own sufficiency. They learn to trust themselves. They learn to be independent. They learn how to lead. So there's a lot of really important benefits to getting girls to participate in outdoor recreation. When girls are outside participating in recreation, they get to experience freedom of body, freedom of mind, freedom of movement, and freedom from societal constraints. We need to give them this safe space where they can try out these things and feel free from the constraints of society. And that's one of the really cool things we get to do at Finding Your Voice. By having it be a female-only environment, they don't feel the same type of pressure from men that they would feel in a co-ed environment, or that they feel at school, or that they feel at home. And they're in this environment where we're encouraging them actively to do these things. Participating in wilderness recreation can play a great part in deconstructing gender roles and improving the status of women in society in general. This is partially because of all the things that wilderness recreation can do for girls themselves, but also the perception of people who do these things, that you're very self-sufficient, that you're very capable and confident. And girls who play non-traditional games or with non-traditional toys are more likely to play organized sports. So organized sports, while it's not the focus of our camp, can be a really great avenue for keeping girls motivated and involved in physical activity. So what are some solutions? Finding Your Voice is one of these great solutions. So it's an all-female outdoor recreational opportunity. When we create these all-female opportunities, we're creating a stereotype-free environment. We're allowing girls and women to feel empowered and relaxed without the presence of men. And that's something that the girls will say in their focus groups. They'll say, it was really nice that there weren't any boys here. I didn't have to worry about how I looked or how I was doing because everyone was really supportive. When there are no boys around, we're allowing women to take control. We're requiring that they take control. Somebody has to take control over a social situation. And if there's no boys, then obviously it's going to be the girls who do it. And women are able to get unconditional support, attention, and acceptance for who they are, and get this personal time more readily when it's an all-female environment. So we're creating this safe and supportive environment where women are empowered to make their own choices about their participation. Self-efficacy. This is a huge part of camp. So self-efficacy was created, or the theory was created by Albert Bandura, and it is a person's belief in his or her own competency at a given task. And it's based on efficacy expectations. So do you expect that you will be able to do the task at hand? Self-efficacy impacts the types of challenges that we take on, the types of goals that we set, our level of perseverance in reaching our goals, and how well we cope with stressful situations where reaching our goals seems difficult. So typically, we're expected to obtain efficacy expectations from 4 main sources. So performance accomplishments. This is, do we accomplish the thing? When we are set to a task, are we able to accomplish it? Vicarious experiences. So do we have role models that we identify with who are doing the things that we want to be able to do? Verbal persuasion. Are there people on the sidelines cheering us on and telling us that we can do this? And then also emotional and physiological arousal. Are we engaged? Are we interested? And do we care about the thing in which we're participating? And that brings us to the end of our training. Thank you.